but that's okay. So, midterm, let's say midterm went good. We had a lot of 30 cum laude, so good. People, somebody had the lowest grade. The midterm is gonna weight 40% for the final grade. Okay, so it's okay. What I suggest is those who attended the class, I would suggest you come at the first exam in June, because you still have the memory, and you try to get the maximum grade, because if you attend the class you have a lot of things in your mind. As you know, we are gonna have two in June, two exams in June, one at the beginning, one at the end, and another one in July.
I actually had just like a small inquiry, because I looked at the dates and the times of the exam, and it's at the same day as our exam for contemporary history. I guess not an issue in overlap.
Did I?
Like the time kind of 6 hours in between. I was just wondering if it would be possible to support more for optimality to have the exams on different days.
Yeah, I know this problem. I already talked to my colleague Merlino. I talked to her several months ago, so let's see what I forgot, but she answered me something about this. I already took care of my students on this grade. So, what did she say? So she talked to the secretary to confirm her availability to move her exam. Like she would move it at 11 or in the early afternoon, because my exam is at 9 in the morning. Contemporary history, same day at 9 in the morning. So the idea is we move contemporary history either at 11 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay?
It's in the afternoon right now. So what I was wondering.
It's in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be pretty difficult. You can ask to, because my problem is that I need, that the final exam, I cannot be only the professor. You need another person. So we had a jury. We are at least 2 people or 3 to make the exam. We must be on 2 or 3. So I must combine with my colleagues, so I cannot move that day, because my colleagues only have this day. So if you want to ask Professor Merlino if she can move the day, yes, but I cannot. Okay? Yeah. Yeah. I know, it's very complicated, because, like, for example, the past year we even had overlapping exams. Okay? So right now we managed to not overlap them in terms of time. In terms of days, sometimes it's, so we discussed this point because it's, but honestly, as professors, we think that it's normal. You take one exam, history of political thought, beginning of June, contemporary history, end of June, and international something early July. So we think we give you the possibility not to overlap in terms of timing. But in terms of days, we think that we have students who try to take the 3 exams in the same session. And honestly, it doesn't work very well. It doesn't work very well because, you need time. Yes?
Yeah, it's because I suppose we have to work the whole summer, so we can't even.
Yeah, it's for us. We would love to take the other sessions, but because we have to work over the summer too. And money too, so it's hard. Yeah.
I see. What are you going to do?
We're going to work just cleaning,
Ada?
Yeah.
What?
In cleaning.
In hotel, actually, in Denmark.
In Denmark. Yeah, because if you work 2 months in Denmark, then you have the 1 year in Italy. I see the problem. Okay, so what I would ask you is to ask Professor Merlino, because honestly I try to do my best, but I need my colleagues. I ask my colleague, and every time I have 3 colleagues who must adapt with my dates, and I cannot move them because the University of Messina is not allowed that I take the exam alone. So I have to ask colleagues to be in the group.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So but talk to Merlino. So next Tuesday is gonna be our last class. Next Tuesday, last class. Instead of the last class, we're gonna have a beautiful event, which is Democracy and Power, a global forum on governance. Okay? So this discussion is gonna be about democracy and what we said in this class. Is democracy a universal value, principle, or should it be adapted to the specific context of the different things? This forum is intended to give words to the students, not because the students are very smart, but because you come from different parts of the world, so we can have very productive discussions about different values and views on democracy. Different values and views on democracy. We're gonna have. So what I want to do is on Monday, last part of the class, we introduce global history of political thought, post-colonial theories, and then the day after we open the conference with a few presentations which was scheduled for the course. So we have 4 panels. Each panel we have a short introduction by a professor. It's going to be me, Professor Merlino, Professor Cusumano, and the 4th one we still have to check. Sabrina, do you have an answer from? No. Okay. So and 4 professors. Then we have 4 students who are gonna make short introductions, and then we discuss already with with scheduled presentation by students from different parts of the world. But the first 4 presentations are the presentation we were discussing here. So Sabrina is going to be introducing post-colonial theories through the idea of Edward Said. We're going to talk about Confucius as the foundation of Eastern. Sorry, I'm sorry, always thinking that it's you, but it's not you. Confucianism. We're going to have Iranian political thought, the roots of Iranian political thoughts, and then there is a 4th one which I always forget, but it's
Gata.
Sorry, and Hannah is going to present about Gata system in Africa, pre-colonial Africas, and then we have different, and then we go to section 2 and blah blah blah, and we're going to hear from different parts of the world, Ukraine and Russia and Vietnam, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this beautiful conference. So since the conference is Tuesday afternoon, I want to finish classes on Monday. So my plan was to do 3 hours tomorrow, 3 hours on Monday. But I discovered that unfortunately you have political theory overlapping. So the best option is to do Thursday, 11 to 1. But you have tax law, Daniel.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's
Have
fine.
the class.
You go watch the video.
Okay, cool. Okay, so Thursday, we're gonna have a class on Thursday, 11 to 1. So that's the best option, because otherwise 9 to 11 you have global administration, tax, Okay, so Thursday, 9 to 11. Now, afterwards I'm gonna say something more. So let's go to the point. Max Weber. So we enter the 4th part of the class. The 4th part of the class is the 20th century and contemporary world. So we enter the bloodiest century in human history. World War I, World War II, the genocide of the Jewish population organized by the Nazis, the advent of totalitarianism in Germany, but also somehow in Italy, and also somehow in USSR. Stalin, it's a very, very, very bloody country. It's a century. It's a very bloody century. We have to understand this point. So we want to understand this point, that it's very, very bloody. Millions, billions of people dying for political clashes, And it's not that, the Nazis were the bad and we are the Western civilization, we did it good. Because we use all our scientific knowledge to make a new invention. The new invention is the atomic bomb. The atomic bomb has the potential for the first time in history to end humanity forever, to destroy all humankind. You know, in the past, before the atomic bomb, we thought, you know, humanity thought that only God could place an end to the history of human beings. Right now is the very human beings, Sabrina, is the very human beings, Sabina, is the very human beings that can put an end to the history of humanity, you know. So we as Westerns, you know, yeah, the Nazis were bad, but what we did was we invented the atomic bomb and we put it into Japan cities, you know, and we knew that we were about to kill, you know, children and innocent people. We did it anyway. So it's the bloodiest century of human history. So what we want to say, what we want to understand about this century, this fourth part of the course, is the relationship with what we did in the third part of the course. So let's summarize again what we did in the third part of the course after social contract. Simona, help us. So we finished social contract, then we entered the third part of the course. What is the central intellectual movement? Enlightenment. What are the central values of enlightenment?
Science, reason, progress.
Yes. And individual rights. And individual rights. Okay? Science, progress, and individual rights. So we think that by using science we can make progress, we can make life better. You know, this is the principle. If we are using reason, and the method of reason is science, we can make the world better. So we grow science, we have new technologies, the Industrial Revolution, and so on and so forth. Great grew. What do we use this technology for? To build an oven with gas to exterminate 6 billion people. What do we use this scientific knowledge? We understand how exactly it works, the physics. We enter within the atom. And what do we use for to build the atomic bomb? So is, you know, this project of enlightenment is a utopia or is a dystopia? Where does it bring us? So it's valid, it's universal, it's a good idea, it's a bad idea. So what we do also, we invent, you know, individual rights, we give sovereignty to the people. We give sovereignty to the people. We invent this perfect machine of the modern state which is designed to protect individual rights and to give sovereignty to the people, because the people is the origin of the social contract. We give individual rights, we give sovereignty to the people, and we elect Adolf Hitler as German Chancellor with, you know, a huge majority. So is this project of the Enlightenment, is something good or is something bad? Does it work or does it not work? So the first person who started to think about this problem is our friend Friedrich Nietzsche, who is, you know, the first powerful critic of Western civilization, which is, and on the basis of Western civilization, which is enlightenment. So what we said yesterday, let's shorten what we said yesterday about Nietzsche. What do you have to remember about Nietzsche? It's just a few concepts. God is
dead.
God is dead. God is dead. Who killed God? Us. We killed God because we replaced it with reason and science. We replaced it with reason and science. We stopped to believe that the world has, you know, a metaphysical law which is governed by God, by the divine, by abstract moral laws, and we replace it with a faith in reason and science. But this is what Nietzsche calls nihilism. Why? Because this faith is based on nothing. Why is based on nothing? Because, as I said, we believe that science is the best thing who brings progress. But then as we see, science brings us to the atomic bomb. Because we think that science and reason is the best thing. But what does it bring us? The science is used to build the technology, and technology is used to build new, killing weapons. Is built to, develop new technology that enslaves us. Is built to make us, become slaves in front of our screen. Is built to, develop technology who controls us in whatever we do to make profit from our data. Is brought us to make us completely addicted to computers. So we believe in technology and science, but then in our daily life, we see that this has consequences, damaging consequences. We believe that we should build up states that guarantee democracy and individual rights. But then in our daily experience, we see that all politicians are corrupted and this system doesn't work and doesn't guarantee equality. So this is nihilism, it means that you believe in something which actually is based on nothing. So this was what we are interested in understanding about Nietzsche, that he develops a powerful critique of Western civilization and of the foundations of the Western civilization, which are the principles of enlightenment: reason, progress, science, individual rights. This is what Nietzsche has taught us. It's the powerful critique, and is the founding father of existentialism. What is existentialism? Why is the founding father of existentialism? Because he said, there is nothing, there is a void. There is a void because when we stop believing in God, there is a void. There is a void, like as I said, the example of the pandemic. In the Middle Ages, you had these huge pandemics who killed 1/3 of the European population. How European population reacted to the pandemics? They worship God. They say, we are sin, you're punished. So they make huge religious celebrations, praying God, to forgive us for what we did. So kind of it was a magic, enchanted world in which we believe in something. And then we have this void, and this void, how does it work today? Today there is a pandemic, and you believe in science, you say, the science said that, so we have to adhere with what they said, and we have to behave this way, we stay close home, we don't talk anybody to each other, and so on. So he said there is a void. It's a cold world, the world which has been voided from religion, and we have to rebuild our own values. It doesn't say we have to get back to religious values of the past, to Christian morality. We have to build up our own values. This is why it's existentialism, in the sense that you say what is important is how you build your existence. It is the fact that you try to become your own God. That it's yourself who produce your own values. So this is what Nietzsche told us. Then he tried to produce his own value, but let's say he didn't succeed very much. He invented a few concepts like the Übermensch, which were then used by the Nazis, completely out of context, because Nietzsche was profoundly existentialist, whilst the Nazis was a mass regime based on the mass, based on the unification of all the people with, beyond the leader, above the leader. So, below the leader, sorry. So, he tried. He didn't succeed. He wanted to reinvent the values, and instead he got mad, and he died at the psychiatric hospital with dementia. So another guy who somehow differently addressed the same problems is Max Weber. Max Weber is one of the most important thinkers of the 20th century. He is the founding father of sociology. We consider him the founding father of sociology because he tried to give a scientific method to the social science. So on one hand, he's super rational, he's super methodic, and so on. On the other hand, he understands perfectly the same thing. they discuss exactly the same thing as Nietzsche. So, what are the key concepts? Why he say the same things as Nietzsche somehow? He says rationalization. So he says what modernity is about rationalization. It's about this idea of the Enlightenment that everything is rational, is real, everything that is real is rational. So we want to make everything rational. Okay? We want to make everything rational. He calls it the disenchantment of the world. Because before Enlightenment, you thought that there were, mysterious forces, governing the world. That you have, these mysterious forces are the will of God, but also, magic things, superstitions, traditions, beliefs, and so on. So the world was enchanted by something metaphysical that you could believe in it. Because why? Because you believe it, not because you understand it, but because you believe it, because it's faith. So you kind of enchanted by this faith, by this belief. Modernity is this disenchantment, is this thing that you say, I wanna understand everything through rational. I wanna rationalize everything. I wanna rationalize everything. And what Weber teaches us through this rationalization idea, he examined the two most important things that happened in the world in the last 400 years in politics. I mean, not in general, but in politics. The two most important things that happened in politics in the last 400 years are the invention of the state as the main form under which we live politically. Right now, the world is divided into states. Everything, all the planet is divided into states. You cannot even, in the contemporary world, you cannot even be a stateless individual. It's not allowed. You must belong to a state. So we invented this machine, which is the state. This is one thing, which is very important politically. The other thing, which is the most important, which was brought us especially by the Industrial Revolution, is, let's see if we can get it. What is the other most important thing? We have the state, the modern state, and we have another thing that was brought us by the Industrial Revolution that we call is something that really rules the world. It's the most important thing that, somehow organizes the world. What it is?
Technology?
Good, but not. It was a good answer. Yeah. Well, let's say one with the most important theorist of this thing is Karl Marx. What rules the world according to Karl Marx? Should. According to Karl Marx, communists should rule the world, but right now is ruled by capitalism. So Max Weber used this thing. Yeah, we wanted to rationalize the world. Through this rationalization, we have created the modern state and we have created capitalism. So what Max Weber gives us is a very powerful analysis of the state and a very powerful analysis of capitalism. What do we have to remind about Max Weber? Let's start with the state. Let's start with the state. So what he says in this ground is very similar to Nietzsche. Because he says, we have rationalized everything. We have put rationality in all the parts of the human organization. And so we have built this rational state, which is rational, which obeys to rational ideas. And what is the result? The result is bureaucracy. It's the fact that at the end, we are victims of this iron cage of rationality. What is the iron cage of bureaucracy? Have you been to migration in Italy? To the office of migration? Yes. That's the iron cage. You enter the office of the modern state and you go there and you say, I should make this paper, and they say, but it's not my task. You have to go to this other office, then you have to attend, you have to take an appointment and blah 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 to this other office, and the functionary say, no, it's not me, I'm sorry, it's, you know, it's another, and you have to make another appointment, and then there is an error in the paper I was done, and they say, okay, yeah, but to get this, you need a bank account, and then go to the bank, and they told you, no, but to get this, you need the permit or permission sojourn. So it's an iron cage, you know. It's, you know, we rationalized everything, but then we're victim, we're prisoners of this rationality. So, let's say again, in the Middle Ages, so disenchantment of the world, disenchantment of the world. In the Middle Ages, the things were considered as a manifestation of divinity's sign. You know, in ancient time, the world, you know, everything had a physical and material meaning. We give meanings to everything that was happening, and we thought it was the manifestation of God. Then modernity is instead that you wanna explain everything through reason, and you wanna build up institutions through reason, right? So, for this we invent the modern state, and the modern state is based on bureaucracy. So what Weber said to explain us this thing is a typology of 3 types of power. Wait, because here in the slides I have before, okay. So let's start with the typology, yeah. So we have 3 types of power. We have 3 types of power. One type of power is traditional power. So we have 3 types of power: traditional, charismatic, and rational power. Traditional, charismatic, and rational power. He said, in ancient time, power was based on traditional. What does it mean? Monarchy, for example, is traditional. Why you're monarch? Because you're smart, because you're good looking, because you're good at writing and at speaking? No, because your father was the king, and his father was the king. So it's based on a tradition. It's based on a tradition. It's based on a traditional form of power. So we have done things for a long time, and you know, we follow the king because that was the king and so on. So this is the traditional power. It's by lineage. It's because the past taught us the rule to get it. You know? So this is one type of power. Second type of power is charismatic. You know, you get power because you're charismatic, because you know how to be a leader. You know, Vladimir Ilyich Lenin got the power because he became the leader of the revolutionary party of the Bolsheviks. He made the revolution, and then it came up that he was the leader of USSR because he had charisma. He knew how to lead the people. Adolf Hitler, charismatic. You know, you have charisma. Or in ancient time, you know, they were the leader of the army. You know, the big warriors, those who were best than anybody else at warriors. They became, you know, kind of kings because they were better at war and they were great leaders. Charismatic legitimacy. So in the ancient time, we had charismatic, we had traditional power, which is monarchy, which is aristocracy, for example, which are the power in the church, which are based on tradition. Then you have charismatic power. You have new great leaders, you know, take the power. Napoleon, Genghis Khan, you know, take the power because they have charisma. The modern power is a rational power. Is a rational power. You get there because of certain rules, which are rules created rationally. Which are rules created rationally. You know? So, for example, this is everywhere. The leader of the country of Italy is the leader of the country of Italy because he was elected by the parliament, which was elected by the people, because we believe that there is a rule which is called sovereignty, and the sovereignty belongs to the people. So we have the rule that people goes to election and they elect the parliament, and then the parliament gathers together and elect the prime minister First, they talk to the President of the Republic, then the President of the Republic goes to the Parliament and say, yeah, I propose that we elect this Prime Minister with this government, and the Parliament vote him, and so you have it. This is everywhere, everywhere. So from the President of the Republic, which is elected by the Parliament, by the two chambers united, because this is written in the rules of the Constitution, because we think rationally, think is the best form of governing this country, blah, 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 blah. So, this is the bureaucratic legitimacy. Until any point, myself, I'm a professor, I work for the state of Italy as a professor. Why? Because I'm good in teaching? No. Because I did a concorso pubblico, I went there, I presented my publication, there is a jury, the jury was supposed to evaluate my publications, my CV, and blah, 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 blah. So, this is a rational thing. So, this is why you get good professors and bad professors, because, you get, according to certain rules, bureaucratic legitimacy, rational power. So the modern state is based on rational power. So this is the point, so Weber says, with modernity, we try to rationalize everything. We do this rationalization, and this rationalization becomes to us an iron cage, because we're trapped in this bureaucratic realm, But what is a state? What is a state for Max Weber, actually? What is a state? Okay, it's the definition that Max Weber gives a state is an institutional enterprise of a political nature in which the administrative apparatus claims a monopoly of legitimate physical coercion. So according to Weber, for political groups, the use of force does not represent its only means, but is the ultima ratio, is the instrument used to guarantee their own monopoly of power. So what is, for Max Weber, the central point of being a state? He said, yeah, you have all these rational things, very good, you organize the thing, you organize everything rationally and blah, 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 but what is the real foundation? You have a state when you have the monopoly of legitimate violence. He says, yeah, you try to rationalize everything and blah, 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 but at the end, the very foundation remains this violence thing. So when do you have a state? You have a state when you gather, the organization of the monopoly of violence. What does it mean that a state is the monopoly of violence? It means that you have a state at the moment in which you are able to organize, a force of coercion which is able to make everybody respect the laws that you make and the rules that you make. Yes, exactly. So he draws upon Thomas Hobbes and he makes this more formal by saying the monopoly of violence. Exactly. Thomas Hobbes. So he said, yeah, you can rationalize everything, but the point is pre-rational, is something different, is the use of force. So if tomorrow we, as a class, we get so well organized that Sabrina is gonna build up an atomic bomb, Lynn invent a new weapon and so on, so that we can go to Rome, we can attack the Palazzo Chigi, what is the government, then the police arrive and then the army arrive, we kill all of them, we take the power with the new state. If tomorrow, why is the problem in Sicily is that mafia is controlling the territory because it's more able to exercise violence in a way that the rules that mafia puts are more respected than the rules that the state puts. So the point is, Max Weber, it's very rational, it's very intellectual, he really likes the scientific method, but to say at the end, the foundation of power is not this beautiful thing. Is the moment in which you get the monopoly of power. And what he says, for example, in the Germany at this time, because he lives in the first, at the end of the 19th century and in the first part of the 20th century, he sees that, yeah, we have, liberal democracy based on the rational thing. We want to put the better, we have the election, everything is gonna compete, so you have the thing. But he sees that at the end, what he was seeing is the charismatic power of the Nazis was taking power. So you have the rational state, but he says, you cannot kill this charismatic power. Yeah, you want to rationalize everything, you put us in this iron cage of rationality, of bureaucracy, and so on. But at the end, what really matters is the monopoly of violence, and you cannot destroy the extreme powerful of charismatic power, which is gonna bring us, which is keep driving us. So this is what you have to remind. In my slides I have a lot of more points, but again, for Weber, the concept of the state and that of violence are really connected, because a state can be identified with it, with coercion. So the state is the only institution that can use violence as its mean, because it can take people and put them in jail. If you do it, is kidnapping. If the state does, is legitimate, retribution because you violate the laws. So this remains the point. This remains the crucial point of Max Weber. So this is what he says about the state. So on the one hand, he established a new method, a new sociological method. He's very rational and he's a real social scientist. At the end, exactly like Nietzsche, he has the same problems. He says, our ideas of enlightenment, of rationalizing everything, is enslaving us, is putting us beyond bureaucracy, so that we have to obey the laws of bureaucracy we don't even understand. We don't understand why it's so complicated to get an identity paper and to go, to the offices of the state, and even, the bureaucracy of a public institution like university sometimes is completely ununderstandable. To do a simple thing, you have to spend 3 weeks to get, the certificate you need. So, like Nietzsche, understands this problem of modernity as rationalization that brings us to this cold thing. On the other hand, he says, it's beautiful, this thing of individual rights, of the rule of law, of liberal democracies and so on, but the foundation of power remains violence. So this is one point. The other point that is important for Weber is the other great force that we had is capitalism. So capitalism here, also the problem is that my students, when you go to the exam, they confound Max Weber with Karl Marx. Okay? No, don't do it at the exam because I'm gonna beat you. Because Max Weber, Karl Marx. Okay, remember. If I ask you Max Weber and you start telling me, the critique of capital is the manifesto of the Communist Party, bye, immediately you disappear, if I don't punch you. So remember, because this is very important, because Max Weber develops a theory of capitalism which is opposed to Karl Marx. So Karl Marx says, why do we have the origins of capitalism? And how capitalism came up? Because in every society you have class struggle, because two different classes, and every time that a new class wins, you have changes in the relationships of production, and you go to the next stage. So from ancient society to Middle Ages, from Middle Ages, French Revolution, industrial societies, and then the class struggle, because proletariat and the bourgeoisie will bring us to communist societies. This is Karl Marx. Max Weber say, nice, he liked Karl Marx, he read it a lot, but he said, I think I have a different idea. And he develops a very, very, very original explanation about how capitalism was born, which now Simona is going to explain to us how capitalism was born according to Max Weber.
Well, when you related to that, following the Protestant Reformation, that basically the individuality and revival and the emphasis on individualism, that it promoted certain virtues or values that cultivated in Protestant countries. That, for example, hard work, because they believe the Protestants that if they, for them, it mattered what happened during the temporal life. So they believed that if they would have matter, it would have a default, and this was the driving force of capitalism.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So he wrote this book, The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. So what he sees, Max Weber, he says, you have modernity is the rationalization of the world. You want to organize everything rationally, okay? You want to organize everything rationally. And when we wanted to organize everything rationally, we created two institutions. One is political institution of the state, bureaucracy, administration, and in the society, we rationalized everything by developing this new system, which is capitalism. Capitalism, what does it mean? That you organize labor rationally. You organize a social division of labor into society. You organize this labor into factories, and these factories are well organized in a rational way in order to maximize the production of goods, so as to maximize profit and guarantee economic growth, and so on and so forth. So capitalism is also, the rationalization of the social world through economic production, to production and trade. So the rationalization of the modern world goes on the one hand on the modern state, on the other hand through capitalism. Capitalism is that you rationalize society through the organization of production, trade, and so on and so forth. But here again, he wants to demonstrate that the origins of this thing is not that rational. Is not that rational. So with Nietzsche, he shared this idea that he wants to show that the foundations of all this rational building of modernity are not in rationality, And so where does it find the foundations of capitalism? In religion. So he studies history, he goes back in history, and he says, yeah, but what I see is where was born capitalism? In the region from where Daniel comes from, There, you go, even nowadays, you go to the Netherlands, they're obsessed, right, with money. Are they or not?
Sure.
Yeah, very much. I mean, you go to the Netherlands, you go to the Germans, the Germans, they very good, like Germans, are they even human beings? So, I mean, they more machine producing, they're very good in economics. So Max Weber goes there and he says, yeah, but we have in Amsterdam. Where is capitalism was born? In Amsterdam. In Amsterdam, what do you have? So the most clear explanation was, you have a huge Jewish community in Amsterdam, like Spinoza. Jewish, they are obsessed with money because they have numbers in their holy scriptures. We don't have Elisa is Jewish. So they have who's Jewish here. Do you have Jewish? No. You are. So tell me about numbers, money. Why Jewish have so much confidence with money?
I think it's a bit like, I don't like stereotypes because I think
Yeah,
most
I'm
of
sorry.
a handful,
Yeah.
perspectives about in the past. But yeah, of course, it goes back to the old scriptures in Talmud and so on. Like, I'm young practicing, so I'm not that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So Max Weber was he didn't like the stereotype either. So he said, yeah, it's too easy to say, yeah, you have the Jewish merchants. Because they say, no, let's try to see what is the main religion, what is the driving force in this society. So there you had the Protestant Reformation, was very strong. And especially you have Calvinist sects. You have Calvinist sects. So he said, how is it possible that these people are so much into religion, but differently from other people who are in religion, like Francescani? Francescani, they don't want to have, rich things. They don't care about money. Why these people are so religious and they care so much about money? Because he went to study the Calvinist doctrine, Protestant doctrine. Calvinist doctrine is when you're born, you already either go to hell or heaven, let's say simply. So he says there are in these Calvin doctrines there are only few people who are saved, who their destiny is to go to heaven. Already when you're born, either good or bad. But you have signs. You can understand if you will saved or not. And among these signs, you have the fact that you work hard and you make money and you produce money. So these Calvinist sects, they were working a lot, making a lot of money, but not using the money, reinvesting, because at the same time it was a sign to enjoy too much the money. So to enjoy too much the money. So he saw that this mechanism of saying, okay, I have to produce more, but then I don't use this money to enjoy life like the aristocrats did, But I invest this money again to make more money, because this makes me sure that I'm saved, that my destiny is salvation. So he said this Protestant ethic of work is what the capitalism has origin, because the origin of capitalism is in a spirit of capitalism. So it gives completely different explanation from what Marx said. Marx said we have to look at modern materiality of material production and so on. But Max Weber said no, we have to look at the spirit of capitalism. And the spirit of capitalism, we can see that it was born in this kind of Protestant ethic. So, for now, you remember these things, and we have a presentation on Max Weber today, right? Ah, Sabina! Yeah, very good. You even came late today, you have presentation. That's great. You're an artist of being late. We start a master, being late. Main teacher, Sabina. So, you want the cake, right?
Are you still recording? Also for this? For everything? Astaghfirullah. So sleepy. I don't know, I'm just feeling weird. I don't know if I want to get drunk or sleep. Get drunk? Get drunk.
them or just this one? Like from the beginning of the start of this class, you recorded, right?
Yes.
Is it possible that you can share it later?
Yes, he's gonna share it in YouTube also, but it takes time to edit it.
No, who's gonna share it? Him or me?
No, he's gonna share it.
The professor?
I mean, basically, I'm gonna share it, but on the name of the
Okay.
professor, because
Yeah,
I'm the
sure.
intern. Yeah.
Okay, but when is gonna be ready?
In summer probably. But do you want the materials or
Yeah,
anything
yeah,
for
sure.
this?
Material.
I can help you with it after the class. I'll show you.
Thank you.
سلام. ایمان صفحه های آخرش چیه؟ آره همجا آبی بود. اوکی 57 صفحه ترسیدم به دستم.
So what's
Sabrina, let's go to bingo.
yeah, it's important what you say about it.
Let's go to bingo. I need money. Girl, you're not gonna use it. You'll lose it. Profit. Don't think like Eric. Good, if you want. Huh? If you want, either. What is it? Anti-corruption private law. This is a lot. It's only on the anti-corruption part. It's not private.
Today we are in the work of Max Weber, one of the most influential thinkers in history. But instead of looking at his theories, we're gonna do something different. What if Weber were alive today? Would he see a world of political influencers, hostile culture, and endless of the form of bureaucracy, of the college admissions, and his ideas born in the 19th century but still define and influence in our century. And let's explore our living in Weber ideas like Iron Cage, or there is way to go out. So, first of all, who is Max Weber? He was a German sociologist born in 1864 until 1920 he was alive. He is considered one of the founding figures in the modern social science. So Weber studied power, authority, bureaucracy, and capitalism. And believe it or not, his work still helps us understand how power works in our society. So imagine if Weber had an Instagram account and he would post something really deep, intellectual captions about capitalism coming from his last works, The Protestant Ethic and Spiritual Capitalism, and with a hashtag of Iron Cage Life and work hard, play hard.
So, but his ideas were not just academic, they still shape our idea about success and power and modern institution. So, let's break down them. Okay. So, I didn't find directly his films in the Netflix, but if somebody got inspired and he would post a film about his ideas, his books, so it would look like this. It's like AI. So uh, the Protestant ethic and spiritual capitalism, which basic on explain how modern hostile culture exists, and political vocation, where he dives into the nature of the political power and leadership. If Weather had a YouTube channel today, what would he posted and deep dive analysis capitalism, take down modern bureaucracy, and TED talk on power. His work is full in insights and still represent today. So, but I find some of the films which express his ideas. I recommend you to watch. Maybe you already watched them. So that's yeah. So the first film there will be The Blood, and Wall Street express his ideas about the Protestant ethic and the spiritual of the capitalism. And next, House of the Card and the Father of the God, you can clearly see about the politicals as a vocation, how to work leadership and power. And next one, Economy and Society, the Crown, and saying about the Jewish nations. So you can watch and get his ideas. So one of the Weber's biggest contribution on his theory of the power, he identified main type of authority. It's like three kind of authority: traditional authority, charismatic authority, and legal rational authority. So in traditional authority, tells about the monarchy, how the king and queens, rulers actually work. In traditional authority, you can give example as a king, kingdom of the England. So next one is a charismatic authority. This power based on the personality and influence. The figures like Elon Musk could be example for this. And legal rational authority is your college admissions. It could be example like non-stop waiting in admissions, like a welcome card and paperwork. So next, bureaucracy and rationalization. Now let's talk about something we have all experienced at bureaucracy. Have you ever tried sign up for the college classes, like going to the welcome point and you're faced with endless paperwork and long-term waiting for hours to fix your problem? So this is bureaucracy at work. Weber argued the modern social science dominate by bureaucracy and effect. The rule based on the system, they're designed to keep everything organized. So, but here's problem. Well, while bureaucracy makes things predictable and systematic, it also creates hierarchy. So a system, right, that can be sophisticated, thinks about all forms of you have had fill out just yet something simple done. Are we really in control, or are we just in tiny cage in a massive bureaucracy mechanism? So the next one is a here's question. Why are we obsessed with the productivity? Side hustle, freelancing, gig economy. Why does success always seem tied and how much we work? Weber's work in Protestant and spiritual of the capitalism argues modern capitalism was shaped by Protestant values, hard work, discipline, and in the past, these ideas were tied in religious beliefs, but today they have transformed into the hostile culture. So we celebrate we collaborate people who work 24/7, but Weber would probably ask, are we actually living or are we just working? Are we free or we are trapped in this endless cycle of the productivity and we are all sick for productivity? So next his works is politics as a vocation. Weber didn't just analyze capitalism, he also looked at political power and political as a vocation. He described two types of the ethnic shape of leadership. Ethnic of the responsibility. Leaders who think about long-term consequences, think about policymakers, crafting climate change and solution. They have to be straight and careful. And ethnic conviction, people who act based on their beliefs, no matter what. They think of actives like Greta, so driving by passion and moral conviction. Now, today world, we see vast set of leaders. Some people want to change immediately, but others work through institution. Which approach do you think more effective, or do we need laws? So, Weber's theory are not just historical. They define how we express power in society today. So, from bureaucracy to hostile culture, from the political leadership to social media influencers, his ideas help us to make sense to the modern world. But real question, are we stuck in the iron cage? Do we have ability to break from the endless rules or expectation and systems, or is it just reality of modern life? Let's think about as we wrap up. So now, just conclusion. Max Weber was not just old school thinker. His ideas shaped everything from the college admission, TikTok fame, from the way we work on the way we are growing. So whether we like or not, bureaucracy and power structures, hostile culture define our world. But knowing Weber's theories help us bigger questions. Are we just control our life, or are we just following systems set by others? Are we truly free, or we're navigated by iron cage? Weber's warned us about. So next time you're driving in a paperwork or wondering why everyone is obsessed with the productivity, just remember, Weber saw it coming. So, thank you for watching. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Which type of authority do you think most powerful today? Traditional, charismatic, or living rational? Do you think we are trapped in the iron cage, or do we still have a way out? Let's discuss.
Thank you, Sabrina. So, thank you also for organizing the conference we're gonna do. Thank you also for organizing the conference we're gonna do next week. Yeah. So as you see, for example, this is what Nietzsche says. Nietzsche says, we celebrate technology and the new potential they do, but we still always trapped with the problem that technological devices gives us, and you have to spend, time and time with this, and then so this is, and then what Weber says, the iron cage, as Sabrina explained, we're trapped also in this iron cage of capitalism, in which we have to do economic growth, we have to work 8 hours per week, every day, 5 days per week, 8 hours per day, 5 days per week, the entire life, and blah blah blah, because you have to give money to go to pension, to give regular contribution, to go to pension if we have pensions, and so on. So This is the iron cage that Max Weber said. We have built this, extreme rationalization through the modern state, through capitalism, and now we are trapped in this iron cage. So it's what he says to us. It's on the one hand he analyzes how it came. He analyzes the development of the modern state, the historical development of capitalism. On the one hand, on the other hand, he sees like a crisis. He sees the shortcomings of this thing. So we have Nietzsche, we have Weber. Right now we can introduce. In the slides you will find much more things about this. So right now we're going to introduce a third thinker, which is kind of expression of this crisis of modernity and of this getting back to what is the origin of politics within violence, conflict, non-rational elements. So, this is three authors. We try to study together and to put in connection Nietzsche, Max Weber, and Carl Schmitt. So, Carl Schmitt is the third one. It's it lives contemporary to Max Weber and it addresses similar problems. So Carl Schmitt, what he did in his life, it's remembered because he embraced Nazism. He was a Nazi jurist. After Nazism, he even went to jail because he was for a short time. But because actually, he was part of Nazism. So we use him to start also to talk about Nazism and fascism. Is one of the most important things that happened in the last centuries. Who knows if it's going to happen also in this century. So we also have a presentation on Mussolini, right? Not Confucius, Mussolini, right? So then we're going to, after Carl Schmitt, we're going to talk about this thing. And we also have a presentation on Carl Schmitt. Somebody is presenting on Carl Schmitt? No.
Carl Schmitt, I think, come si chiama? Daria should have done it, but she's sick today. No, she's at work. I don't remember.
Daria.
Daria.
Lucia. Argentina. Chiquita. Exactly.
So
yes.
What?
She asked me if she can do it tomorrow, if it's
Okay,
possible.
she's gonna do it tomorrow. Cool.
Perfect.
So we use it to introduce also fascism. So what do we have to say about Carl Schmitt? Carl Schmitt, he embraced Nazism. Why? Because he also, like Nietzsche, he was very critical against liberalism and what we call legal positivism. What does it mean, legal positivism? Legal positivism is we use rationality to make positive law. Positive laws means written laws, rational laws, and positive laws and rational laws to ensure rights and so on. So you write everything, you use rationality, and you do, constitutionalism and all this kind of thing. And liberalism, in which you believe in individual rights. It was very critical to this. It was very critical. So let's see his main political concepts. What are? So, sovereignty. They say, we like this idea of sovereignty, popular sovereignty, how do we build the sovereignty of the states, and so on. Sovereign is who decides in the exceptional case, in the state of exception. So when there is a crisis, you have one person who decides, and this person who decides in the crisis is the sovereign. Sovereignty only becomes visible in moments of crisis, So what is the state of exception? Like when you have a big crisis, a pandemic, a war, a revolution. So in that moment, the laws are not that much important, but you need to make decisions to face the crisis. And the guy who makes this decision is, or the institution who makes this decision is this institution who have sovereignty. So basically, in legal positivism, in legal theory, we say this, the sovereignty belongs to the people because the people goes to election and then they elect the government, the parliament, and so on. No, he says when there is a crisis, a pandemic, a war, you see that in most cases it's the executive power and the leader of the executive power who takes the decision. So the sovereignty belongs to the leader who is able to make the decision in the moments of crisis. So it's the exception, the state of exception. You say to see the sovereignty, you have to see one moment, one state of exception. The state of exception is when the law is suspended because there is a crisis. And this is the state of the exception. So you say the origin of politics, this is the origin of politics. It's the crisis, the moment of exception. And this is what he calls the concept of the political. The concept of the political. So, this is also interesting. He wants to understand with the concept of the political, not politics, but the political. He wants to understand what is the origin of politics. So, like Weber says, yeah, right now when we talk about politics, we think about the state, the legislative power, the government, the parliament, and so on and so forth, the parties, and so on and so forth. But he said the state is the contemporary expression of politics. But what is the real principle of politics? Let's try to have a broader concept of politics, which is not about the state, the powers of the state, state authority, and so on and so forth. What is the principle of politics? So, like for example, if we study moral or ethics, the principle is God, good versus bad. If we study aesthetics, the principles are, ugly and beautiful. In economics, it's profitable versus unprofitable. In law, is right versus wrong. What is the principle of politics? What makes politics, actually? Here, it says, is the distinction between friend and enemy. So, actually, the origin of politics, you have politics when you have two different positions and you can divide. And you can divide it. You can identify those who agree with your position and those who disagree. And those who agree are your friends and those who disagree are your enemy. So you divide it into parts. Indeed, the word party, political party, comes from this division, from this distinction. There is politics when you can divide the social body into two different fields who wants different things and who sees each other as enemies. This is the origin of politics. This is the origin of politics. The origin of politics is a conflict between two parts. You only have politics when you have the division and the distinction between two parts who have different ideas and different goals. If you don't have this distinction, there is no politics. There is, legislation, what it does like about liberalism and liberal democracy is that liberalism and liberal democracy, they say, yeah, at the end we want all the same things. We want human rights, we want the rule of law, and if you apply rationally the good things, yeah, we go in the right direction. He said this is not politics. Politics, you need two different positions. You need two different ideas. You need two different set of values, and the confrontation between these two set of values, friend and enemy. So the origin of politics is this idea of a conflict, is this idea of a war, of the possibility of a war between two parts. This is why the quintessence of politics is when you have a revolution, when you have one party who talks all his friends and identify the enemy and attacks the enemy. The quintessence of politics is war, when you have two different sovereign entities, like two states who have different objectives and they fight each other in order to get their own objectives. So this is, the friend and enemy, So this is, the point is, this friend and enemy is not impersonal, it's not private, it's not a moral enemy, it's just an enemy compared to that exact point. It's like a soldier. You're a soldier in a battle, you don't dislike your enemy. Maybe, you can acknowledge, maybe he's a good guy. Maybe if we were friends in a situation at a bar and we go to a pub together, we could even be very good friends. But in this, as I'm in this part and this on the other part, we're enemies, and we can acknowledge the possibility of killing each other. So the origin of politics is the possibility of making this distinction between friends and enemies. Enemies are always public enemies. It's nothing personal. It's that you're on one side, one field, and the other is in the other field. So the origin of politics is in this conflict, is in this struggle. The problem with Carl Schmitt is that he says politics cannot be neutral. The liberalism, constitutionalism, the rule of law, liberal democracy, they try to neutralize politics. They try to say, we all agree upon these principles, we only have to rule in a good way, we have to make our universal values and to promote it, through constitutionalism, through the United Nations, through all these international organizations that can bring us, to generalize all these things. So it's neutral. We say, we have decided already what is good and we want to generalize. So for him, liberalism is an effort to neutralize politics, but politics cannot be neutral. You need two different parts. You need to have different parties who are in conflict which are in conflict to each other. And which are in conflict means that they always must consider the possibility of going in war to each other and to kill each other. We cannot use legal system to hide this origin of politics. This origin of politics which is in a conflict, which is in a war, So what he didn't like Carl Schmitt about his time, it was the beginning of the 20th century, there was a kind of globalization already, capitalism was working, most Western countries were ruled as liberal democracies. He didn't like this evolution in which, we go towards a technocratic world. This is why he liked Hitler, because he said, Hitler is bringing us, this friend-enemy thing already. It's putting the state of exception, is identify an enemy, which are the Jews, which are the internal enemy. They clearly dividing in two fields, and they say, who is with me is with me, the other we are in war with it. So this is why he became a Nazi, because he really didn't like the idea of liberalism in which you neutralize this conflict. You pretend that this conflict do not exist. We see that right now is the same thing, So a similar thing, because somehow with the globalization of the 90s, we produced international organizations. These international organizations try to put a governance in the global economy, and to promote this idea that we can establish through progress, through economic growth and so on, we can establish liberal democracy and capitalist societies everywhere. This was what happened basically in the 90s. In the 90s, after the end of the Soviet Union, after the end of the Cold War, Western civilization thought, so in Russia, And in all the former socialist country, a capitalist system is gonna be established. Capitalism has its own rational rules, and usually capitalism come with the development of liberal democracies. So we're gonna have more and more countries in which you have liberal and normal elections, and we have this liberal democratic system which is gonna expand all over the world, and we have to establish international organization in which we put a global governance on this thing and so on, and then we establish the European Union, make the rules, so it has the rules to print money, and that has the European Commission who has its own rules based on liberal values and principles. And right now we see that we have, nationalist stance against all of this. President of the leading country of this, the United States of America, is the guy who say, yeah, but this is not what we hate all these immigrants we have in this country. We have to get back to our original value as a nation of the United States of America. We have to be proud of this, and we have to make our own interest against the interest of the other enemies that we have. In this moment, the enemies are, first of all, is China, but then we have these Mexican people who sending us illegal immigrants, and the illegal immigrants are our own enemy, and so on. So it's, resurging this thing against, the technocratic elites of liberal things that they want to govern according to, defined rules. So, what does he say, Schmitt, about liberalism? Liberalism defines the political in terms of either ethics, private morality, and economics, market competition. So liberalism depoliticizes politics, because liberalism doesn't recognize that politics is based on a conflict, it's based on different views, and these different views must be, both of them, legitimate, and they have to, compete. Liberals usually say, yes, but these guys, they do not respect human rights, so they're not legitimate. These guys, they do not elect their own parliament, so they're not legitimate because they're not democracy. This is not legitimate because there is no separation of power and the government controls the executive power. So it doesn't recognize. It says, we have these rules of law that we have to respect. So it uses these neutral languages to say, by saying, with liberalism, with enlightenment, we have established these liberal principles, human rights, political rights, civil rights, the rule of law, separation of power, and everybody has to comply with these rules, with these principles. So it uses these languages of neutrality, and it doesn't recognize that there is this division. Also, what Schmitt doesn't like about liberalism is this language of is this individualism. It is based first of all on individual rights, but politics means not individual, it's groups that gathers together to say, we're friends, and to identify an enemy, And if you see politics, it always working somehow in this way. When you see who is able to win the election, is those who are very, very able to identify an enemy and to fight it. So, for example, right now what has become so crucial in European politics is migration crisis. So you have a set of parties who were able to say, our enemies are the migrants. Because they come, they sell drugs, they do crime, they steal our jobs, and so on. So we're the guys who defend us against this enemy. And so they put the thing, so we have the global elite for migration, and we are those who defend the nation against these migrants who are the enemies, together with the parties who defend them. And this is always very powerful to identify an enemy. So if you go to see the elections, for example, you see that this party win the election even when you have not migrants in their territory, because they produce a narrative, because they produce this polarization into two fields, and is always politics is always the ability to identify this enemy. Why socialism, communism was so powerful? Because he said we have an enemy. The enemy are the rich, the enemy are the capitalists. And we have to fight as a majority of the working class against the enemies. You know, this was also very powerful narrative. So when they did communist and socialist revolution, in countries where they didn't have even the working class, because they were peasants, Cuba, Vietnam, China, even Russia, majority was the peasant, but they did the revolution of the working class because the narrative of being socialist against capitalism was very powerful to identify an enemy. So Carl Schmitt is this distinction between friend and enemy, you know. And also Nazis, they were so effective in making this kind of work. Adolf Hitler, he got to power by saying we have an internal enemy in our nation, in the body of our country. We have an internal enemy who's gonna kill us because they have all the money, because they control the bank system, because they control the job market, which are the Jewish. These are the enemies. These are the enemies, and in order, to grow as a nation, you have to fight against this enemy. So, really, Hitler was it looked like he read Carl Schmitt and he understood very well. He understood very well the point. And he even brought it to the extreme point, which was the genocide, the extermination, which is never the point for Carl Schmitt, because Carl Schmitt, he says it's a public, it's a public enemy. It's not a private enemy. It's not a biological enemy. It's not a racial enemy. So you can fight it in a war. When you win the war, the point is you have the power. Genocide, killing, destroying the enemy is not. So the point is that Hitler made the Jews moral enemies, biological enemies, racial enemies, while for Carl Schmitt the enemy is always a public enemy, political enemy that you have to fight in the model of a war. So in the model of a war, he liked very much the word in the 19th centuries. He liked very much the words in the 19th century. He thought the war is the best way to fix conflict. So you want a territory. The other country want a territory. You go in a war, but in the 19th century you have the Ius Publicum Europeum. So you have conventional words, you know exactly what you can do, what you cannot do. You have to treat prisoners according to conventions, and you cannot pass certain boundaries. So what is so in World War II that you completely destroy the rules of the war, because you put racial things, biological things in the war. So it was too much. So he justified that he was a Nazi, but his principle was not very much as Nazism. So what do we have to remind about Carl Schmitt? Let's say again, when you come to the final exit. So the decline of political modernity, like Nietzsche, like Weber, is within this decline of this degradation of political modernity, which you tend to deny the origin of politics, which is violence, which is conflict. So he was concerned about the fact that politics at this time was denying this conflict, this friend-enemy basis of politics. So the essence or nature of politics has not to be found in political representation in parliaments, government, or political institution. The matrix, the foundation of politics, has to be found in conflict, in phenomena such as war and civil war and revolution and states of exception. This is what is really war, what is really politics. It's not legislation, constitutionalism, rationalization, and so on. So war is at the same time the most extreme and the most pure manifestation of politics. it embodies its fundamental rational logic. So we can say that the traditional way was to say it is war is the continuation of politics with other means. This was Barone von Clausewitz said this. War is the continuation of politics with other means. For Schmitt, politics is the continuation of war with other means. This means that at the origin of politics you have wars. At the origin of the state you have wars between different tribes, between different groups and blah blah blah. They fight each other and they establish a state in which you have a dominant group and a subordinated group. So the origin is war. Then instead of war you try to organize politics in a way that you go on and you bring political institutions, but then you always have a kind of conflict within society. This is similar to what Marx says, that you always have class struggle, you always have a conflict. You also have a conflict. So the point is the origin of politics is violence, is conflict. The political is the rise of an antagonism between two parts, of a contraposition between friends and enemies. The origin of politics, which he calls the political, is this distinction, the possibility of make a distinction between friend and enemy. Because this friend and enemy is the intensity of union or separation. It's a situation that cannot be decided by law, by legislation, by constitutions, but only by a struggle. A struggle. The enemy is only political enemy. It's not a moral enemy. He's not ugly. He's not despisable. It's just a political enemy. It's and it's a political enemy, and politics is always the possibility of getting to the point that you kill each other. This is why in the state of exception, a pandemic, a revolution, a war, politics come from. Okay, so thank you very much. We're gonna have class tomorrow, 9 to 11, Thursday.